Hello my friends and welcome to the channel. Today we're taking a look at one of my favorite stealth-based combat builds in D&D remade in Baldur's Gate 3, a multi-class combo of Rogue and Ranger that specializes in massive first-turn sneak attack damage and has the ability to enter stealth in the middle of combat and continue getting off sneak attacks every single round if you have the right positioning. This build is set up around a few passives that you get from level 3 in both the Rogue and Ranger class. So the core of the build will be basically fully online by the time you hit level 6, so right around the time you hit Act 2 in the main story. In combat, this character is a ranged damage dealer that can often eliminate multiple targets in the first round, then disappear into the shadows to plan their next strike. Outside of great sneak damage, you also get the benefits of your traditional rogue, like lockpicking and trap disarming. And you're a sniper with the bow, even when you're not hidden. For this video, I'm going to walk you through the important first 6 levels of this character and explain how the subclass specific passives work in combat, so you should have a pretty good understanding of how this all works. Then I'll talk a bit about how I plan on leveling up for the endgame from 7 to 12. With that intro out of the way, let's start off at level 1 with the basic character creation and starting ability scores. On this build, we'll start out as a level 1 Ranger. For your starting ability scores, you don't need to worry about strength at all, since none of your actions will use strength. Dexterity is your most important stat, it's used for all of your important rolls, and you should set it to 17 with your +2 bonus. The other 2 stats that are fairly important for this build are Wisdom and Constitution. Wisdom will help with any spell casting you do as a Ranger, and Constitution helps add more HP to the build, and it helps with concentration checks for your spells. If you want to min-max specifically for combat, I would set one of these to 16 and one of these to 15. Since we're making a ranged combat character, I think it's safe to leave Constitution at 15 and put Wisdom at 16. If you want a bit less of a min-maxed spread for these ability scores, you can also drop a few points in Constitution and Wisdom, and put some back into Intelligence for rogue skill checks and Charisma for speech, but that's really up to you. For weapons and armor on this character, you're going to use a bow or crossbow as a primary, light armor to keep your maximum dexterity bonus, and you should look for any magic items that add dexterity, stealth bonuses, and useful spells. For your level 1 Ranger passives, we'll first take a favored enemy, which is not really super important, but I like either Sanctified Stalker or Keeper of the Veil just for the extra proficiency in Arcana. For your Natural Explorer passive, I personally like Urban Tracker for the free proficiency in Sleight of Hand, allowing you to do lockpicking and stuff easier before you actually get the Rogue class. At level 2, we're going to take Ranger again and gain Spellcasting and a Ranger fighting style. For the fighting style, obviously we're picking Archery, which gives a permanent +2 to every attack roll with ranged weapons, meaning we're just overall much more accurate. For spells, we're taking Hunter's Mark 100% of the time, every time. This spell is invaluable to archery builds because it adds 1d6 damage to every single hit against any enemy that it's applied to, and you can move the Hunter's Mark to new enemies as a bonus action, which means you always just deal extra damage on every single hit if you remember to move it to new enemies. For your second spell, I recommend taking some kind of heal, either Cure Wounds or the Good Berries. At level 3, we're once again going into Ranger, so we can pick up an important subclass for this build, the Gloomstalker. Gloomstalker Rangers have some very cool key abilities. First, they get the Dread Ambusher ability, which adds +3 to your initiative roll, and you get to make a second attack for free on the first round of combat that also deals extra damage. You also get a special hide ability as a Gloomstalker that you can use as a bonus action in the middle of combat to try and hide, regaining your stealth so you can make more sneak attacks. The final awesome ability here is Umbral Shroud, which allows you to become invisible for 10 rounds in combat, so long as you're obscured by shadows or darkness. Every single one of these abilities is going to enable you to do some crazy things on the first round of combat, especially once you start taking levels in Rogue for the sneak attack bonus. For your extra spell at this level, I would take Ensnaring Strike or just another heal. That's up to you. The important thing is that you pick Gloomstalker. At level 4, we're going to take our first level of Rogue, and just in case you don't know how to do this, you can add a new class to your build by clicking Add Class at the top right in the level up screen. At Rogue level 1, you gain the ability to Sneak Attack, which will really increase your damage in combat. Sneak attack damage increases every second level in Rogue. So at Rogue level 3, 5, and 7, you gain even more sneak attack damage. As a rogue, you can also choose to get expertise in sleight of hand and stealth, making it even easier to hide in combat and to pick locks out of combat. At level 5, we're going to take another level of rogue, which gets us the cunning action special passive. This might seem kind of underwhelming at first glance, but with this passive, a rogue is able to use their bonus action to reposition in combat in several ways. First, you can dash as a bonus action, doubling your movement, which means you can move to high vantage points or retreat from melee combat and still make an attack on that turn. Second, you can disengage as a bonus action, which means melee enemies cannot opportunity attack you when you move by them, so it becomes much safer to run away from melee enemies. Third, you can hide as a bonus action. Technically, we could already do this with Dread Ambusher, but in any case, the other two cunning actions are incredibly useful when you're a somewhat squishy ranged character. Finally, we come to level 6, which is where this build really comes online and starts doing some serious work on the first round of combat. For this level, we want to take the Assassin subclass for the Rogue, which is all about rolling big stealth damage and taking out enemies on the first turn before combat really even starts. The first key passive for this class is called Initiative, which gives your character advantage on any attack roll against an enemy that has not taken a turn in combat. Since this character is almost always going to act on the first turn because you attack from stealth and because of the insane initiative bonus from Gloomstalker, you basically always are going to have advantage on attacking in the first round of combat, which means you basically are never going to miss. The next passive is called Ambush, and this one is really quite good. Ambush makes it so that any attack made against a creature who is surprised becomes an automatic critical hit. What this means is that your first sneak attack to start combat will always be a critical hit, and then you will get 2 more guaranteed criticals in the first round of combat once the surprise round starts. The final passive here is Assassin's Alacrity, and this allows your rogue to regain their action and their bonus action at the first round of combat. Normally, your sneak attack would take up your main attack action for the first round of combat, but with this passive, you get to make your sneak attack for free, then regain your normal attack and your bonus action on the first round. And then you also get to fire off your free attack from Dread Ambusher as well, making at least 3 hits against surprised enemies in the first turn. Now after level 6, there's a few different ways you can take this class. Level 6 is when you really start to come online from the multi-class build, and after this, you get to decide whether you want to commit harder to Rogue, Ranger, or something else. For my personal character, I plan on taking level 7 and 8 to get Ranger up to level 5, which gets me an ability score increase at level 7 to bump Dexterity and Constitution. At level 8, I'll be gaining an extra attack from being a level 5 Ranger, which basically just piles on even more of that first turn damage with a 4th attack that can be a guaranteed critical hit if it's a surprise round. After that, you can go pure Rogue for the rest of your levels, which will basically just continue stacking your sneak attack damage higher and give you some cool stealth focused abilities. For my personal character, I plan on ending it on 5 levels of Rogue and 5 levels of Ranger, with 2 levels of the Fighter class added in. Since you want to be able to pump out as much damage as possible on the first round of combat when all of your passives are active and you get the free Dread Ambusher attack, 2 levels of Fighter to get Action Surge might allow you to basically double that damage output. With this 3-way multiclass, you will have 2 attacks on normal rounds, 4 attacks on the first round including your sneak attack, plus the ability to Action Surge and double that if you want. You also get 3 sneak attack dice from Rogue level 5, and the Uncanny Dodge, which makes you very resistant to explosives and traps. Finally, the 2 levels of Fighter also give you another fighting style, so if you want, you can add 2 weapon fighting for those extra style points from dual wielding. Ultimately, it's up to you and how you want to build your character. If this was regular D&D where we could plan all the way to level 20, I would just say level Assassin Rogue all the way to level 17. But since we max out at level 12 in this game, I think the extra Ranger and Fighter levels will actually help a lot for just adding more and more attacks to the first round of combat. That basically covers it for this Archer build, so I hope you enjoyed and found this guide helpful in planning out how to make your stealth Archer build in Baldur's Gate 3. This multi-class setup is actually one of my favorite to play in real tabletop D&D games, and I've used it in at least 3 or 4 different scenarios. The satisfaction of sniping down enemies from the shadows before they can even react and then disappearing doesn't really ever get old to me, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Let me know what you think of this build down in the comments, and feel free to criticize it and offer your own suggestions. The beauty of D&D builds is in discovering something that you never thought of, and I'm always keen to learn new things that I can use to improve my own characters. Thanks for checking out the video. I've got links to my Twitch channel down below for anyone interested in dropping by my stream to say hi, and until next time, stay safe out there, everyone.